5 seconds of silence. Finish your drinks, lads, and
What do you mean finish the drinks? I'm drinking that through the way. I've got a fucking large glass of whiskey here. Jesus.
this is the 5 seconds of silence you're talking through.
Okay.
Just once in a decade, in a lifetime maybe, the world of entertainment is disrupted and utterly elated by something entirely new.
Good Lord. And now for something completely different.
It's big, it's bold, it's arrogant, it's like a barrel load of ugly fruit. It's the Guerilla Cricket Grumpy Old Men podcast. I saw Jancis Robinson recently on an article, and it just reminded me of that rather rubbish description. So I thought I'd use that as the intro. It's Grubby here. It's not Fred Titmus, and it's the Bear. How are you, chaps?
Very well.
We're all absolutely dead keen, aren't we?
Oh,
to
absolutely.
See this wonderful, unbeaten England team who have not been beaten for weeks. Take on the West Indies in the West Indies. Always our favourite away tour in many respects, not least because of the time of the day the games are played. And it starts tomorrow, and you can hear every ball live on Guerilla Cricket.
Absolutely.
Live and direct from somewhere.
From all over the place, in fact.
Well, yeah, all over the place. Although it is now no longer hashtag GC from home strictly, because people are wending their way into the studio. Not Fred's going to join me. Hendo's going to make an appearance on Wednesday. Supposedly.
He's still alive.
He is still alive, and he's going to come back to the fold. And Tony's going to be joining me, and some other people. I think Jack Hope's coming in during the series, first test even. So should be fun and games.
It's been a long while since you've had some company. Although I think I came in for something.
You did come. You came in for an afternoon, yeah, on the proviso. During was it a T20? I think.
Was it a lockdown breaker? Was it a Downing Street party of an event?
Yeah,
I don't think it was actually.
Lots of prosecco and cake.
Did you write it off against expensives though? Because that would then
absolutely.
That would
I
then
was trying to get it in before the end of the financial year.
I've done some. Not redecorate. I've put on some shelves and sort of organised the lounge. I actually mopped the floor, which is the first time I've been mopped for 2 years. Threw out a sofa.
Talking, I'm going to leave that one just there. I'm going to go back to Fred's point about the financial year. Have I ever told you that my mother-in-law got herself induced with what became my wife? So she was born on the 3rd of April. Because back then you could claim some tax relief if you had your child before the end of the financial year.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh my word!
Yeah, thrifty.
Do you gentlemen know why the tax date is April the 5th?
No.
Considering the quarter date, which is 10 days before, isn't it? It's March the 25th. But when they changed over from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, we lost 10 days. Because they had to make up a couple of thousand years of missed leap years. And people said, all right, okay, they grumbled a lot, said, all right, okay, we'll have it, but we're bloody well not paying our taxes early. So they moved the tax day back 10 days, and it's still at April the 5th.
Power to the people.
Yeah.
When did they switch over?
That's a very good question. I'm glid you asked me that. I can't be asked to Google it.
Is this the same? I mean, that is some severe laziness.
Well, I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking of the amount of leap years that were lost. What 25 days a century?
No, because the difference between the Gregorian and the Julian is that you only have a leap year in a century year when it's divisible by 400. So 1900, 1800, and 1700 wouldn't have been leap years under the new system because they
I've heard this. Yeah. And was this the same moment where they introduced July and August into the calendar?
No, that was in the Romans. No, they did introduce January and February because March the 1st it used to be New Year's Day, but August I think was Emperor Augustus. He had it named after him, but it previously didn't have 31 days. But he insisted he had to have 31 days. So they took another day off February.
Is that right?
And of course, it's my birthday next week on the Ides of March. Same day as Julius Caesar was. The Ides of March when Julius Caesar was murdered.
Beware the hot bear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, we ought to really talk some some cricket whilst I'm googling Gregorian calendar. It was in 1750, by the way,
Okay.
as we all knew. Yeah, it is a tour tomorrow, and my initial, I'm going to make a slightly odd point to start with, which is that in a lot of sports, you'll find when players have got an inbuilt excuse before they start, they tend not to do their best. I'll give you an example of this, like from football yesterday. Man United got thumped by their close neighbours, Manchester City, and it didn't take long before a completely specious excuse, in my view, which is that they've got some kind of a temporary manager who's there till the end of the season. And the word was coming out, well, whilst there's uncertainty about the management, the players, they're not sure what they're doing, which is why, they missed straight balls and easy headers and things because they were unsure about the management. And the same is true, it occurred to me, of course, of this England cricket.
What, missing
tour.
straight balls? Maybe
well,
United should sign Johnny Bairstow.
Which is that they've got a temporary management in place. And in some respects, it gives an excuse to the players before they've started. Which doesn't put them at their best.
Well, and if I know anything about Paul Collingwood, he won't have any of that nonsense.
Absolutely,
well,
I was going to say
he won't have that in advance, but that's going to be the excuse if they don't do well. Mark my words, it will appear from one of the players or their teams stroke representative.
I mean, it's a hellish difficult place to go and win. I hadn't quite realised the only time we've beaten West Indies away in the last 50 years was 2004 when I was there for 2 of the tests. And saw Hogarth's hat-trick, Thorpe's ton in Barbados, and saw Brian Lara score 400 in Antigua. We won that series 3-0 really comfortably. Steve Harmison was the best bowler in the world at the time. But that's the only time in 50 years we've won a series in West Indies.
Yeah, and considering West Indies have for a couple of decades been some way short of the great West Indies teams we remember from our youth, that is something of a surprise.
It is, isn't it, really? I mean, I thought we should have probably won the last 2 series there, especially when Andrew Strauss and we were the best team in the world. We should have probably won when we were there then as well. We didn't, but they have made a habit of us being completely shit at the beginning of the series and then creating completely flat decks.
Which is fair.
Which is fair enough. It's fair. Of course
we didn't deserve it last time, did we? I mean, Mark Wood came out with credit, but not too many others did.
Same as the Ashes, really.
I was there for one of those tests at Antigua in 2019, and England did lose. They were a little bit unlucky. I don't think I've ever seen Stuart Broad bowl better than he did in the West Indies first innings, and he didn't take a wicket. He must have gone past the bat 25 times. And this was the start of this specious notion that if you drop Broad for the first test match, he's going to be pumped up for the second. I think if he knows that's going to happen, I don't think it quite has the same effect.
Well, no, I disagree with that. I think it does. I think he's the kind of person who thinks I shouldn't be dropped, and it makes him really angry.
Yeah, but it's not really relevant because he's not on this tour.
Well, no, of course.
No, and now with Robinson pulling out due to a back spasm, maybe there are a few regrets, a good ruining going on in the.
Well, there probably are. I mean, I kind of think that the West Indies is the tour that everyone wants to go on in it, just because it's the Caribbean and it's such a beautiful place to be, and it's always warm and the sea's just there, and you kind of earn your stripes. And if I was Anderson and Broad just as much as anything, I wouldn't mind if I was carrying a drink so I was in the Caribbean probably.
Although it's probably a bubble, it's still a bubble tour. So in some respects, it's probably worse to be locked in hotels when you've got these beaches and rum bars available, and you've got to sit, playing Xbox in your
but
hotel room.
They'll be at something like the Rex and Lucia, obviously not in St Lucia, but the same sort of thing. I mean, these big multi, exactly. It'll be on a beach. You'll have a private beach anyway. You can probably go to.
Yeah, they'll be fine. But see what you think of this potential attack here, chaps. So it's likely, Wood will be leading the attack again. Wokes, Overton, and possibly Saqib. If they play a spinner, I was reading today, it's likely to be Leach and not Parkinson, which 100% baffles me. But that, obviously Wood's got that extra pace. The others, not so sure. It looks a bit samey outside of Wood, doesn't it?
Oddly enough, English bowlers could do well in the West Indies, the way the West Indies wickets have played over the last 10 years or so, because they're not pacey wickets of old, as we well know. And there is something in it for the bowlers. There's usually something in it for the bowlers. So oddly enough, an English line and length can work wonders.
Maybe, although Wood,
Yeah.
as I say, was one of the few to come out of the last tour with credit with his express pace.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of what the
Well,
pitches
that
are
was
like.
one game, wasn't it? If I recall.
Was it?
Last test, I think it was when he
Yeah.
got 5 for.
Yeah, I thought he bowled well the whole tour, but anyway, who knows? Someone will know. But no, I
People
thought
who've been
But not
bothered
us.
to look these things up would know. Yeah.
with
But
our
this
lovable
podcast is all
refusal,
about our thoughts. It's
our
not about
lovable
Yeah.
refusal to do research.
It's going to be interesting, but I think we would probably all agree that the series is going to depend on England's batting rather than their bowling. As we've said for probably the last 5 series, whoever they've been
Yeah.
playing, wherever it is in the world.
I'm just taking it as a given that we'll continue to struggle in that area.
Well, if we struggle to get runs, then it pretty much is not going to matter who the bowlers are.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
gonna
I don't think the
struggle.
West Indies, you know, I was doing another podcast, funnily enough, last week with Dave Brooke, and
Splitter.
Splitter, yeah, and he's a you know, big West Indian fan, and he worries about their batting as well. So I mean, you know, it's not like it's basically 2 frail batting orders and a bowling tax.
You
And who
get
does
the
better?
feeling that day 5 rotors might be a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Unless there's some weather around, which there can be. I think
Mhm.
we had some rain in Antigua when I was there. Most disappointed. But if I recall, the game only went 3 days anyway, even with the rain. So it's
God, it didn't back in
unlikely.
2004. An absolute featherbed on which Lara scored his boring 400.
Yeah.
Yes. Were you there?
I was there.
Were you
and
bored?
there was a sense of okay, that was a bit of a stupid thing to say, boring, but there was a sense of inevitability about it. It was the one where they sort of rocked up in the morning of the first day, and strangely enough, Ashley Giles got a tummy bug, and so Gareth Batty played.
You know, that's no big deal.
And they scored 751 or something like that with his 400. And so I've told you this many times, but some entrepreneurial chap in the crowd had knocked out a load of T-shirts, and so the following day he was knocking these things out. 751 for 5. We have them now. Bear in mind they were 3-0 down in the series at the time.
Yeah.
I've still got somewhere that T-shirt. Happy days.
Probably doesn't fit anymore.
I bought it big.
Yeah, good thinking.
Super
Yeah,
size.
thanks.
Yeah.
That's a lesson to any of you youngsters out there. Always err on the side of caution when it comes to t-shirt size.
There was a magazine called Yes No Sorry, a bit of a fanzine that was produced by mate of one of our mates we were on the tour with, and they had a picture of him, a guy called Kev, on the front of this magazine, next to one of the Carib girls. They used to have these Carib girls, like dancers, sponsored by the beer
I do
Carib.
remember.
Yeah. And the headline read, inside, topless. So you turn the page, and of course, inside is Kev without his top on.
Good man, good man. Of course, it's
Carry on humour.
it's a double coated York Duke ball, though, isn't it, in the West Indies these days?
Oh, he's gone technical early.
Well, you know,
What's
Is
that
this
double
the first-
coating of lacquer going to do for the ball, Bear?
Is
Well,
this
it-
the
well,
first
well-
outing for it?
no. They used it on the last 2 tours, I think. Or they switched to it certainly before the last tour. So it's basically a bit English Duke, but yeah, it's got an extra coat of lacquer on it. So
You wouldn't have thought you
'cause-
needed 2 coats in the Caribbean at this time of year. Boom, boom.
boom. But yeah, well, the wickets are quite abrasive, aren't they? So that's why
Okay.
they have the extra.
But
that's it.
do you think?
But last time, well, I seem to remember the last time we were there, the ball was swinging into the 60th over when the breeze was coming in. So you know,
Would that have been a bit of reverse?
No, it wasn't necessarily reverse. It was standard up, probably and reverse as
Really?
well. But yeah, I seem to remember that. You know, I've watched a lot of cricket. I watched virtually every day of England
You've
the
no
last-
need to underline your credentials with us.
for the last 13 years, and I don't remember a lot, but some things I do remember, and that thing I do remember.
Don't remember any one-day games.
No,
What?
very
It-
rarely.
this-
World Cup final, I remember, funny enough, Fred.
Oof.
Yes, but this is a point. I don't know whether I made this in the last podcast, but I think I did. When you're at a game, you remember it much better than when you're watching it on the telly. And the question is why? I mean, I remember meeting up with Hendo and a couple of others. Possibly, were you there, Bear? Maybe not. At the Oval for a completely meaningless
No,
50
I
over
wouldn't have been
game
there.
about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I remember Juliet Clancy was there, the late Juliet Clancy, and it was a nothingy game between Surrey and Hampshire, and I remember a couple of things that happened in that game because I was there.
Mhm.
Whereas I've watched many games on the television since, probably hundreds of hours of thousands of hours of cricket, of which I have completely no recollection. But
Mhm.
because you can put it in a time and a place, it sticks in the memory much more. And I'm wondering if that would be true also if you were, say, a roving reporter who was watching every game of Derbyshire throughout the seasons, whether you would remember it more because you were there, or whether it would still go in a blur because it's all just one.
Maybe you should ask your friend. Is it Kevin Hand, the guy who covers all the Middlesex games?
I should ask Griff, the Derbyshire person who hasn't missed a game since about 1979,
Griff.
or something ridiculous like that. Griff?
We might hear more from Welsh cricket in Boring Cricket Tweet of the Week.
Griff is
Ah,
a
of
remarkable
course.
person who I think watched 1,000 consecutive days of Derbyshire cricket.
Bloody hell!
Jesus,
and
that's
could do-
a
What a
glutton for
masochist!
punishment. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the one he missed was to go to a Bruce Springsteen concert, 1,001 days ago or whatever it was,
Yeah,
which is a complete waste of time in my opinion. But he seemed to
Yeah, what-
enjoy it.
it is a whole day of commitment though. If you're going to watch Bruce Springsteen, 4 hours on stage.
Yeah, would have thought so. With his faux working class credentials, but and during that time, I'm wondering how many games Derbyshire have won. It's probably not been all that many, so
Single
it's a bit of a
figures.
slog. But it's these beat people. It's what they have to do.
Well, there you go. Ask someone like that who's qualified and see what answer you get back.
Well, you see, so I was at one of these test matches in the West Indies 2 years ago, and I remember quite a lot about it because I was there. But the other two test matches, I'm scratching my head thinking, what the hell happened? I think Wood took
I
some
can't
wickets in
really
one of
remember.
them. I think England lost the first one.
Didn't we lose the first one, won the second, and lost the third, or something? Didn't we?
No, I think Antigua was the second one, and we lost that. In
This
3
would have been
days.
some very straightforward research to do, wouldn't it?
It would have
but
been.
it just goes to show, we don't pretend. We don't pretend we got
Yeah.
everything at our fingertips.
But we
I'm
could.
sure we won one last time we were there, didn't we? I mean, we'd lose the series, but
Is somebody going to look it up?
yeah, go on then. I'm going to look it up. The thing is, when was it? 2019, you reckon?
Yeah, it was 2019. This time of year.
It's going to take a little bit of time, so wrap on.
And what made you choose Antigua? I mean, many things would make you choose Antigua, but was there anything in particular that made you go there?
No, it was a good time, good timing, and it was a nice place to go. I've never been to any of the places where I've never been to the West Indies before, and I was there for a week, and 3 days of it were cricket, and I had to sort of kill 4 days in Antigua, which
Sounds
for
awful.
people who enjoy beaches is absolutely fantastic because they apparently have 365 beaches in Antigua, one for every day of the year. But unless you're there on leap day, in which case you're struggling. Back to Gregorian calendar, folks. But I'm not a big beach person, I have to say. So
It's nice to look at, I find.
There are some touristy things to see, some very nice and beautiful views and some interesting history.
Did you go to Shirley Heights?
I went to Shirley Heights, yes.
Beautiful.
I went to the Antigua Museum, which has got some paleontological things from a very long time ago, and a statue of Viv Richards, which is basically all you need from the museum.
Yeah.
Really.
Did you go and visit the road where he grew up, which is called Viv Richards
No,
Way
I didn't.
now?
But I wanted to go to Curtly Ambrose's childhood home, where his mother used to ring a bell outside where every time he took a wicket. But
That'd be annoying, wouldn't it?
but nobody seemed to know where it
When he was taking 7 for 1.
It was Sweets in Antigua. Sweets was the name of the village.
Got there.
Oh, you found it, have you?
Yeah.
Can we stop rapting then? Yeah.
Yeah, you can. do.
Baldy and the Slapheads, wasn't that his reggae band?
Yeah, you wouldn't argue with Curtly's, but
There you
No.
go.
you wouldn't tell him what a stupid haircut that he's wearing nowadays.
Yeah, although it is.
I was correct. Right. So in the first test, West Indies 289. We were 77 all out in our first innings. Quality. They got 415 for 6 declared, and we were all out for 246. They won by 381 runs.
Close.
Close.
Could have gone either way.
The second test, England must have batted first, got 187. West Indies got 306. We then got all out for 132, and they won, got 17 for none, and won by 10 wickets.
That was Bravo's innings where he must have played and missed 40 times before he got to 50.
So you said that we won the second test, so you weren't.
No, yeah,
correct,
but no, I said we won one test, and we did
We
win
won
one
the
test.
third.
We won the last test, the
the
dead
dead
rubber.
rubber.
Of course, we're dead rubber specialists. Well, we got 277, bowled them out 154. We then got 361 for 5 declared.
Who
Bowled them
scored
out.
the runs?
I'll have a look. Scorecard.
Root, presumably.
Possibly not. Let's have a look. Scorecard. In the first innings, Rory Burns was playing. Jesus, 29 he got, typical. Josh Butler got 67 for crying out loud.
Bloody hell.
Ben Stokes got 79 in the middle order because we were at one point, we were, what, 69 for 3? 107 for 4, and then we're
Take that.
232 for 5. Yes. So 67 and 79 for Butler and Stokes, and no one else got any runs really.
Yeah.
Extra's got 38. That's pretty good going.
And that's the one where Wood took all the wickets, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. In the first inning, and they were bowled out. Campbell got 41, and Shane Dowrich got 38. And they were all bowled out for 154. Yeah, Wood got 5 for 41 in the first innings. Mo and Ali got 4 for 36. Then in the second innings, 10-23. Keaton Jennings was opening. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Joe Denley got 69. Yeah, Joe Root did get a ton. He got 122. Josh Butler got 56. So he was in the prime of his Test career. And Ben Stokes was 48 not out in the second innings.
Every time I hear Shane Dowrich, it reminds me of listening to the radio. It was when the West Indies were over here and they won the first Test, and we went on to win the series, didn't we?
Yeah.
So after that first Test match victory for West Indies, they had Carlos Brathwaite in the BBC commentary box, and he just walked past Shane Dowrich, obviously quite a height differential, and he said, "There's Dowrich now, hailing me, hail Shorty," and it just really made me laugh. So there we go.
Pretty good on Mike for somebody who
Carlos.
works for another channel. Yeah.
Roston Chase got a ton in that. I think that was his maiden Test century, wasn't it?
Well, one of those games, he must have took the 8th for, wasn't it? Was that the first?
Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it? And in the second innings,
the second
Jimmy
Test
got
match. 3
wickets. Oh, let's see. Yeah, he did get his 8 for. I think this his first. Yeah, it must have been that first Test, wasn't it?
Maybe. While you were reading out the scores there, Bear, I said I haven't looked at the markets yet, but I think a little shrewd bet might be to go under the lowest innings score, if such a bet is possible, because England can always throw in a 60 or 70 all out, and you're probably looking at 140, 150 or something for the lowest series score innings. So there's a little tip for you there, chaps.
Yeah, it was. Chase got
8 for 31. No, it can't be that.
8 for 60.
60. That's right.
21.4 overs. Yeah. Rory Burns got 84 in the second innings in that Test.
Roston the Destroyer, Chase.
If any Patreon are listening, you can probably dig out the Hendo commentary from that. It would probably be worth listening to.
Oh, super.
Roston Chase got 8 wickets in it.
Yeah, I think he was a bit
Roston
apathetic.
fucking Chase, he probably called him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's another one.
I do seem to remember him having a meltdown about how someone of Roston Chase's standards could get an 8 for.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
Considering
didn't he get a 5?
England bowlers who have got 8 wickets in one innings on the fingers of about 2 fingers. In my lifetime, we've had Bob Willis 8 for 43.
Bob Massey.
Well, England bowlers.
England bowlers.
And Stuart Broad's 8 for 15. I'm struggling to think of any others.
Yeah.
Jimmy's best figures are 7 for something, aren't they?
Yeah, 7 for 42 or something.
She's done a couple of times.
Since Jim Laker, it probably hasn't happened all that often.
No.
Well, there was that.
Eric Underwood.
There was the Kiwi, wasn't there? Got 10 for in India last against India, wasn't it? In India. They did get about 600 runs.
And probably got dropped for the next Test.
And
match.
they got dropped.
And rightly so, yes.
Well,
because it was in New Zealand rather than in.
Well, they've been up and down now, haven't they? I mean, they've had 2 Test series, got battered by Bangladesh in one Test, battered them in the other, then battered South Africa in the first Test and lost the second.
Yeah, South Africa are
suddenly looking a little bit better.
Back into Test match relevance.
Well, funnily enough, there's no Kolpak players anymore, are they? They're all able. They're all. Some of them are available now.
Well, they do. They've picked out a couple of people who probably wouldn't have been Kolpackers and who are doing well for them, and it's their batting which is really. I mean, their bowling has been pretty good for a few years. They've had good quality bowling, but South Africa's batting has impressed me what I've seen of it, and they really gave India a bit of a going over at some point because India put them under pressure, and South Africa have not been renowned in their history for coping well with pressure, especially having to get 4th innings totals. But they did really well.
Yeah, that was a weird series in that respect. I don't know if we talked about this in the last pod, but
India won the first one, South Africa won the second one. I'm guessing now.
Yeah, no, they did. No.
2-1, didn't they?
Yeah, South
the
Africa won 2-1. They
series.
lost the first one. It was close, and they lost. They won the two. But in the
to my
second
memory,
two
they needed
tests,
to get about 250 in the fourth innings, which is never a gimme.
Well,
against
the weird
the
thing
toughest attack of India.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, that series, like, it was all low scoring total. So in the first test, India won by not many on sort of 250 sort of totals.
Yeah.
And then in the next two tests, India got sort of 220, 240 in the first innings, and South Africa managed to sort of get with it.
350 plus, yeah.
No, they didn't. They in both tests they were behind on first innings, and then bowled India out for a similar
in the third innings, and
similar
needed
sort of
250
score
in the fourth or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then they
You're
kind of
listening
cruised
to old
it.
men vaguely remembering cricket matches. Which only happened about a month and a half ago.
Yeah, true, but I wasn't really watching them. I was just quite surprised that exactly that South Africa didn't choke. And of course, our brethren, Guerilla Cricket South Africa, actually got given the fucking rights, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean,
good for them.
Good for them indeed. I thought they would be available for not very much, and I think I was vindicated on that score. But of course, in the world of COVID, it's not so easy to, and it's not as much fun, to be honest. If we talk about, we always like to be at grounds, and we'd like to, do more live commentary from grounds if possible. But it's really not much fun when you're in bubbles and testing and locked up in hotel rooms. It's not what it was.
No, exactly. Well, it should all change this year. Anyway, World War III's coming along. We don't have to worry about it. So.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they'll get to sort of the West Indies and South Africa and places like that.
Well, there'll be a nuclear winter. I won't worry about it. There'll be no cricket.
Cheery.
What's that going to do to pitches, Bear?
Well, they'll be wet and cold. I don't know if you'll be getting out.
So bad news for spinners, you say?
Light issues, man, everywhere.
Well, they might have to start playing more with pink ball. So that should
in snow.
Yeah. Well, on that cheery note, we ought to do one of our very many and highly prized segments. So I'm going to ask Grubby to give us his blank, insert blank here where I can put in the jingle.
Grubby's been scouring Twitter while sitting on the shitter to find a fact about which he can speak. It has to be unique, but interesting cannot be. It's the boring cricket tweet of the week.
Yeah, well, this week I've got a short list of 3 for you chaps. This, as you've just heard from the lovely jingle, is Boring Cricket Tweet of the Week. And what I do, I type cricket into Twitter and see what it throws back at me. And I handpick for your aural pleasure a short list, which the chaps then vote on to see which is the most boring. Huge.
We need. Is there a Welsh one? We
Inevitably, because I do skew it. Sometimes I put Wales cricket or Welsh cricket.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that is indeed the first one.
Do
Fred hates it when I load the dice, but it makes me laugh. Stephen Hedges has tweeted the following: Museum of Welsh Cricket launches an enhanced website.
Ooh.
Well,
potential excitement in that boredom.
We've mentioned
enhanced how?
We've mentioned the Museum of Welsh Cricket in the past.
Oh, we have.
And actually, I think.
Do you think he works for them? Is he the curator or something?
I think there was a Tony. I think there was a Tony Cotty exhibition, which I was quite keen to go and see. The cricketer, that is. Okay, so that's from Stephen Hedges.
I'm wondering what's in a Museum of Welsh Cricket. I mean, some momentous events have happened in Welsh cricket, not least Gary Sobers hitting 6 in an over.
Exactly, yeah.
At Swansea, but I'm not sure you could make an entire museum out of that.
Oh, you could. They've probably got the ball, from that.
I think there was
from that-
more than one ball because he hit one out of the ground and halfway to the mumbles. And
When-
Will Fuller was commentating.
Went down
They
the road after the 68 bus.
Well, I mean, presumably it's anything that happens in Glamorgan, I mean, or whatever, or Cardiff. So
Where the other parts of Wales.
there's probably an article, for Monty and Jimmy.
It's a museum, isn't it?
Yeah.
A museum,
You're
yeah.
not going to have an article in a museum.
Well,
An
no, they'll have one of those
exhibition.
poster boards. In the old days, you'd have black and white photos or something with a description next to it. I imagine it's one of those sorts.
I
of
wonder if
museums.
they've got a full area dedicated to England's murdering of Bangladesh in the 2019 World Cup, a game that
Well,
my
they've
family and
probably
I
got
were all
the
at.
Cardiff match of Jimmy and Monty.
Yeah, exactly. That's
That's
they
what
were
I
saying.
just
But
said.
is that Welsh cricket? I mean, that's sort of England.
Cricket in
Well,
Wales, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's cricket in Wales, exactly. That's what I mean.
A side point. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I've mentioned most of my anecdotes before. There used to be somewhere on the internet, on YouTube, an interview with Gary Sobers and Malcolm Nash, who was the bowler who went for the 6 being interviewed at the same time, sitting next to each other, by I think it was Will Fuller of BBC Wales at the end of that day, which was quite interesting. Not least because when Malcolm Nash was being talked to, Gary Sobers was smoking.
Yeah.
And you don't see many sportsmen smoking in post-match interviews anymore. And he would have a quick drag, and then he'd come back to him and he'd blow a smoke ring and give his answer. But Malcolm Nash was a medium fast left arm bowler, and that over was what was always described as an experimental over of
I was
slow
going to
left
say, I
arm.
thought he bowled slow that over. Yeah.
Well, he only bowled that over slow. He didn't normally bowl slow. He was a persevering seamer who must have bowled many thousands of overs for Glamorgan in his life.
Do you think he was
people only remember him for that one over of?
Do you think he was tempted to shelve that experiment after the
well,
fourth
you think
six?
after 4 balls, you think maybe I'll go back. And no,
he's
I'm
not
gonna bowl
expecting
speed.
it this one.
It's not going so well, this.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, so that's your first boring cricket tweet of the week. Museum of Welsh Cricket launches an enhanced website from Stephen Hedges. Now, this next tweeter has appeared in boring cricket tweet of the week before.
Boring person.
None other than Sachin Tendulkar.
Oh.
Now, there's a rather heartwarming image that's been doing the rounds on Twitter and other platforms where the Pakistan cricket captain, women's cricket captain, Bisma Maroof, brought her 6-month-old baby into the Indian women's team sort of huddle and dressing room. And there's some very cute images, it's heartwarming stuff, but made utterly sick-making by this from Sachin, who tweets that image and says, "What a lovely moment. Cricket has boundaries on the field, but it breaks them all off the field."
Oh, fuck off. I'm going to throw up.
Shut up, Sachin.
Exactly. He wins. He wins. Don't he want to hear the third?
Well, boring or is that the word? Emetic, sick-making. What do you think?
Yeah, puke-inducing.
I'll leave that.
Yeah.
I've got one more for you. Let's not jump to conclusions just yet. This is from somebody called Dan Jads. You ever come across him on Twitter? Dan Jads.
I don't look at Twitter.
I don't think I've come
J-A-D-Z.
across everybody on Twitter. So
No, but a good portion of them you have. And he I think it's a he. He writes, "Oi, what cricket bat should I get this year?" Now, firstly, I just thought a bit rude to start a tweet with the word "oi." And
frankly, I'd be prepared to answer him if he hadn't taken that tone.
I don't mind that, shouting into the void.
Yeah, it says it all.
Well, you got people replying to him. I think he didn't deserve any replies. He didn't deserve any replies for that rudeness. But again, is it boring or is it just rude?
It's not really boring, no.
So we've got one that is sick-making, one that's a bit rude, and one that's a bit
really boring,
administrative. So there you go. Stephen Hedges, Sachin Tendulkar, or Dan Jads. Who gets it, chaps?
Theoretically, Stephen Hedges is the most boring tweet, but I'm still going for Sachin because it's just puke inducing.
I'm as usual. I'm going to go for the Welsh.
Yeah. So I think that's largely unanimous, apart from the bear.
Well, no, I said it should be,
but who did say he should get it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not even 70%. I did tweet something.
It's an administrative
the other day as well, so I may be getting a bit of a reputation about being anti-Welsh, but it's not really true. I quite like Wales when I've been there. I did this.
I do like a Welsh accent.
This was a quote from a history book I was reading, of course, about the era, Grubby, of
what?
The Plantagenets, who often crop up on this show. In early 1141, with Lincoln threatened by the king, Robert of Gloucester came to the rescue from the west with an army of what one chronicler called a dreadful and unendurable number of Welsh.
A chronicler. What a great job title.
Well, there
Crazy-
weren't that many
crazy
people writing
Celts.
diaries at the time, but I thought that was worth tweeting at. So they, people have been considering them boring or worse for a very long time. So you definitely got to vote for the Welsh Museum.
Our love affair with Wales continues.
Absolutely.
Well
I
done,
like the
Stephen
Welsh.
Hedges.
I do like the Welsh.
I've had some great times in Wales, including with a bear.
Indeed. When we
Who was
couldn't see
stoned on air.
stoned on air, couldn't see bugger all, and really quite tired. With two teams that we couldn't see the numbers on the back of their chest, and we didn't have the bloody video feed, did we?
And this was not
an
Guerilla
absolute
cricket. This
nightmare.
was broadcasting to
That's
the
for the
world.
world. Genius.
The official ICC
Official
radio channel.
ICC feed, yes, of Afghanistan versus Sri Lanka at the 2019 Cricket World Cup. And I didn't recognise any of the players
No, exactly.
other than Lasith Malinga.
It was really
but
quite
everybody was
tricky.
bowling.
It was really quite tricky. I mean, I got some stories for the day, didn't I?
Well,
You've
you
done-
should have done.
You've been on
I
the mail
did.
online again.
No. This is on the Mail Online, but I of course have to mention Hank the Tank. Have you heard of Hank the Tank?
No.
Hank the Tank, man. Hank the Tank is a bear.
Don't be a nurse.
Where are my stories of the day? Have they disappeared, or
jokes.
did I put it on this one? Hank the Tank. Hank the Tank. I'll tell you what. You look at a picture of Hank the Tank. Hank the Tank is a fucking
You
enormous
keep saying
bear.
Hank the Tank. I mean, tell
Hank
us
the
what's
Tank-
going on.
Hank the Tank is a bear. He was a burglar bear in California. But the picture of him, I mean, he is absolutely enormous. He looks totally obese. Apparently, he likes human food, and the story says basically he might not have hibernated because he's probably hiked up on sugar, and food is so readily available that he doesn't actually need to hibernate. 227 kilo black bear, but he's been rampaging through people's houses, and they were going to put
In
him
what
down.
part of the world?
California,
California.
Dakota. California, Dakota border. I think it's the Lake Tahoe area.
That's Nevada. Nowhere near
Nevada,
Dakota.
yeah, the California Nevada border. But they were going to shoot him and put him down. But thankfully, Hank the Tank is actually not just a singular Hank the Tank. And apparently, a bunch of bears around there have.
Turns out there's a whole family of
Yeah, well, they
bears
DNA
who
tested them.
like
and-
their
and-
food.
exactly.
Where are we going with this?
Well, they've been breaking into people's houses literally while they're in there, but not threatening the people and just going for the fridge and shit. I quite like the
This
idea of
isn't
that.
something new. I mean, we know bears are always going after campers and stealing their food.
Yeah.
It's only when they don't find food that they sort of go after people, isn't it?
Well, exactly. And so these bears are, and so well, usually they shoot them as well if they're dangerous, but this one they're not going to. They're just going to take them away. Put them
Well, let me
somewhere-
tell you, if a
put them
bear
somewhere
walks
safe.
into my house, I wouldn't be in the house very long.
No, exactly. You just run away.
For one
and that-
reason or another.
But he rips through garage doors and shit. But it's not surprising when you see him. He is like a tank. That's why he's called Hank the Tank.
Yeah, you mentioned.
What's
Box
the
of-
name of the bear, though?
Hank the Tank.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry.
Has he got a name, this bear?
Yeah, it'd be Hank.
Is he likened to a certain piece of military equipment?
Well, he
Oh,
is
Good thinking.
Mm,
a tank.
mm,
Ah, clever.
makes
uh,
sense, doesn't it?
My
I
next
think
story.
We've milked this for as long as we possibly
Yeah.
can.
I'm not milking a bear.
Well, you never know. It might taste good. Box of human heads stolen from Denver truck. I was like, what?
Denver Truck sounds like an American footballer.
A thief broke into a freight truck in Denver this week and made out with some macabre cargo. A box of human heads. According to a release from the Denver Police Department, the truck was parked, and this box was marked exempt human specimen. And it was just basically a bunch of heads going off for human research. And someone nicked them.
What do they do with them?
Oh, fuck knows. The police have asked if anyone finds a bag of discarded heads, please get in touch with us.
I wonder if they were indigenous Americans or possibly Vikings who used to scalp people and cover these skulls in gold and use them as bowls. Did you know that? That was, was a bit of a
no.
Viking thing.
Mm.
It was a way of, showing their military superiority.
Yeah,
by
having
turning
the skull of your enemy, that's
as tableware. Yeah,
quite symbolic, isn't it?
yeah. Ooh,
And,
well, it's not like your usual stories about a bloke getting his penis caught in a blender or something like that.
Well, no, I've
Well,
also
hang on a minute, he's not finished yet, though. Is he?
yeah, well, no. We've got two world records.
Yeah.
The world record for walking underwater in one breath.
Voluntarily.
Yeah, Croatian free diver, walked on the bottom of a pool for 350 feet. In
That's
three,
not easy.
no, it's not. He did it. He was under there for 3 minutes and 6 seconds.
It's too bad.
351 feet and 5 inches, and on the bottom of a pool. Said it was really easy. Didn't have to train because he's so used to free driving and apneic breathing, which means whilst moving underwater, he can hold his breath. Breathing, the previous record was just 314 feet and 11.5 inches.
So see, the amount of time he held his breath for, just over 3 minutes, is nothing if you're a free diver. They hold
Exactly.
their breath for like 7 or 8 minutes sometimes.
Precisely, but and whilst moving as well, you're using up
Yeah,
the oxygen in
of
your
course.
bloodstream. So yeah, but it's still obviously it's
Is
pretty
this
good.
an official Guinness Book of World
Yeah, these are
record? Because there was a time. I mean, we used to. I don't know about the two of you. Probably used to sort of get this as a present or something once a year.
I
the
get
Guinness
it. I
Book
get
of
it for
World
my
Record
daughter
book.
every year. Well, she used to like it.
You'd think, oh, which one should we try? And it's probably not best to get sort of 11-year-olds thinking, let's try and do the holding your breath underwater for as long as possible thing to break the record, because it could have slightly difficult consequences.
There was
Yeah.
one I heard the other day. They were going to break the world record for reading a children's story to the most number of people, and it was only about 1,000 people. I thought we could do that. You could just hire Plough Lane, and just about break that record.
800 people. Not on a Tuesday night. You probably get 470.
The tiger who came to tea, something like that.
Exactly. Could do that.
It's a bit of
Oh
a
my goodness.
stupid record, isn't it?
Well, a lot of these records are really stupid, and this one is particularly stupid. Polish guy, second world record of the week, done on March the 4th. Spends 3 hours in ice for Guinness World Record.
Ooh.
Basically, a Polish endurance enthusiast broke the world record in Lithuania by spending 3 hours and 28 minutes with his body submerged in ice. And they've got a picture of it. He's basically in a big glass cube with his head sticking out at the top of a pile of ice cubes. Now, surely it beat the previous
get
record of 2
burned.
hours and 35. Well, exactly. I mean, that is actually really
Horrible.
quite painful.
No, thank you.
And surely you end up with hypothermia and your blood frozen. virtually,
Honestly,
don't
the
you?
Guinness Book of Records hasn't been the same since Ross McWhirter got murdered by the IRA.
Wow.
He wouldn't have encouraged these things.
No, I don't know. So that's two. That's my stories of the week. 2 world records and Hank the Tank and a box of human heads.
Well, if any of our listeners come across the box of human heads, please do contact the Denver police. Was it Denver? And let them know where you found them, because if you want to get a hat, find some heads.
I mean, do you think they, notify the people whose bodies, relatives of heads?
No, they're going to keep quiet about it, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, they haven't kept really quiet about it because it's in the news.
Well, they've kept quiet about who the heads belong to. I mean,
Well, yeah, but everyone will be going, was that my
And
my
they're not
dad died
talking-
last week? And he had cancer of the
He
brain.
left
Is
his
he going
body
to?
to
Yeah,
medical
exactly. Yeah,
science.
precisely. Is that my dad said?
And I'm going to sue you for $40 million.
Oh, well, exactly. Yeah.
That's probably why they won't. We did ask, or the Bear put out a couple of tweets. Some might say in a desperate grab for ratings from what would be called pod bosses by a British tabloid newspaper. Pod bosses in desperate grab for ratings. He put out a tweet saying, it's time for the grumpy old gits, that's us, to get on the mic so we can do another random podcast. As such, we thought it might be nice to ask you, our adoring public, citation required, whether you have any questions or indeed advice for us. Just reply to this tweet. And we did have a couple of replies. A chap called, I'm assuming it's a chap called Ronnie Omelette, which is a great name. He says, do you feel compelled to reward the listeners by sending a commentary team to the West Indies and broadcasting live from a hot tub?
So we're off first class, no expenses.
Absolutely. I'd love to be doing it from a hot tub in the West Indies.
I'm
but
wondering how that would reward the listeners.
yeah, exactly. Well, I suppose if we had the camera on, well, I don't know if that'd be a
Oh,
reward.
no.
Actually. Yeah, exactly.
No.
A couple of beached whales in a pool in a hot tub.
I'm obviously getting old because I'm thinking, ooh, electrical equipment in the hot tub.
Well, yeah, there will be that too.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
could, I suppose we
I've
could
never
station the mics
actually
over
had
the
an
top.
ambition to watch a cricket game from a hot tub.
Don't they have a swimming pool at one of the grounds in the West Indies?
Yeah, they
Like-
used to. Sandals,
yeah.
who were their sponsors. Well, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that's continuing, because the owner of Sandals died last year. He was a great supporter of West Indies cricket. I wonder if they're going to carry on supporting him
Sandals
now
in
that
the
he's
bin.
gone. We've had this argument before. I don't think grass banks are great for watching cricket from, but hot tubs, really?
Grass banks have got a sort of romantic notion attached to them, haven't they? And
Well,
it
they're
looks
better
quite
to look
pretty
at
on.
than to sit on.
Yeah, it looks pretty on. But if it's a hot country, then you're sitting on sort of lumpy, hard ground. That's not going to be particularly
Ants
nice.
nest. Well, you just
Maybe
take
New
you
Zealand
take one
on
of
a warm
the,
day is probably
you
the
take one
best.
you take one of those hemorrhoid cushions and you'll be fine.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
you're
we've
on
all
a
got one of
slope,
them.
aren't you? You know, you end up rolling down the hill like that scene in The Princess Bride. You didn't think I was going to say that, did you? Where they sort of roll
As
down the hill for
you
about
wish.
yes, for about 5 minutes. It's a great film.
It's a lovely film.
Great film.
My name
If
is
you haven't
Inigo
seen The Princess
Montoya.
Bride, please
You
do
killed
see
my
it.
father.
I did hear they're making a remake of it, which is
Prepare
a
to die.
disastrous thought. Why
No.
would you do that?
It's Mandy Patinkin. Is that his name?
Mandy Patinkin.
Mandy
is Inigo
Patinkin, yeah.
Montoya,
Who played Saul in Homeland? Is Inigo Montoya.
His
Yeah.
background is, of all things, Yiddish theatre. Did you know that?
Well, I mean, he's a
No.
man you can never forget, though, isn't he? With a name like Mandy Patinkin. I mean, it's just
that's
like,
true. So he's
Well-
got a certain, if you're a casting agent, you say, "Oh, we'll get that guy. What's his name? Mandy Patinkin."
yeah, exactly.
Ironically, Bear, given what you just said, ironically, I had forgotten
Ah,
that name because it was only when I don't know what it's like for you, but like whenever I'm watching something, I spend half the time googling the people in it
Yes.
or
yes.
wikiing them, and I wanted to know what he'd been in, and lo and behold, God, that's that fella from The Princess Bride. Stone
Now-
me, I thought.
Now,
Yeah.
here's a
Well, he didn't say his
paranoid.
catchphrase, did he?
Well, here's a paranoid
No.
thought. You say that, Grubby. Do you find though that weirdly your computer knows that do you think your computer listens to the TV whilst you're watching it?
I think my computer does listen to some conversations that my wife and I have, or my mobile does, because I'll give you an example of this. Talking of Wales again,
It
Um,
sent
we-
you an
we-
advert for divorce lawyers, did it?
we're going to an adventure place in Wales. We're going to go and do the
Wales!
longest and
You're not
highest zip
safe
wires
there.
in the country. I know bad shit happens in Wales, right? Anyway, so we're talking about this place. And it's called Zips or something, and Emma's doing all the booking on the adjacent sofa. And about half an hour later, I was doom scrolling on Facebook as usual, and lo and behold, big old ad for Zips. And I had not done anything on my phone. So
What is
there you
But
go.
there you go.
scrolling.
There you go.
Doom scrolling?
What?
It's continuing to scroll where you're basically getting loads and loads of bad news on whatever platform you're on.
Yeah,
Doom
exactly.
scrolling.
Well, you need to get better friends.
No, it's just the world's falling to pieces.
So
Yeah, you said.
Exactly that. I'll be watching something, and it'll be even a historical context thing, and I'll start typing in something, and it'll bring up exactly what I'm looking for
yeah,
after the first word, and I'm like,
it's because you're
really?
so obvious.
I must
So
have
predictable.
something turned off on my settings because
It doesn't do that.
it doesn't do that to me. No.
Uh,
No. But I do, like Grubby, I do look for actors in films that I'm currently watching.
But
or
that's what I
have
mean.
just
It kind of, you can put cast of, and it'll actually, one of the choices it'll bring up weirdly is the choice of the film you're actually watching on the TV at that time. That's what it always freaks me out a bit. Yeah, it's a bit creepy.
But we used to argue about these things like for hours after watching films. That was the guy who was in.
Yeah,
Apollo 13.
totally.
No, it wasn't. You're thinking of that other bloke.
Yeah.
And now we've got nothing to talk about because you just go, oh yeah.
Google it.
IMDb, Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Google,
really.
yeah.
Google Zymers.
Shall we?
Well, so I'm not sure we've answered the wonderful question of
Ronnie Omelette.
Do we
Well,
feel compelled to reward listeners? Well, I'm sure we'd all love to be there. The last tour, Guerilla cricket was represented in some way in the West Indies by David Brooke and by Annie Chave.
And
who
by
were very
you.
popular with a lot of retired West Indies cricketers. And
In
there
fact,
was-
by
there
you
were some-
going out there was how we got the World Cup gig, really, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and I was there for one Test match. So Guerilla has, I wouldn't say it sent people there, but it has been represented as
By
and
people
has,
who paid their own way.
by
Yeah.
people who paid their own way, yes, and got gigs whilst they were there, if only short ones. So, Ronnie Omelette, that's the answer to your question. Nestlers, one of our own Nestlers, gets in touch to say, before the Big Bang, what was there? So I'm going to leave that one to the Bear, who the Bear does science.
Nothing.
So where did it come from?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Just blinked into existence. Bing. That's it.
Well,
It
Nestlers,
came
I
through
mean,
a wormhole and a black hole and a white dwarf.
it is
from a-
possible that there were
from
other
another dimension.
attempts at formalizing matter, which weren't successful.
Well, yeah, it depends which theory of whatever it is that you can subscribe to. The many universe theory, or I don't know. I
think
probably
it's
would
fair
have
to say,
known more about it when I was
Nestlers,
younger.
that
But
science is undecided on that particular question.
As science is undecided about many and most things.
Mm.
That's the best answer you can give as
Ooh.
a scientist. Is
You're
we
going to
don't
put us down as
know.
COVID deniers on the International Podcast Registry now. We're going to
No,
have
I'm
an
not.
explicit tag. which we well and truly deserve. And Messy Jez gets in touch, one of our regular listeners, it's fair to say, along with Grubby's mum, Barbara. He says, would the world have appreciated Shane Warne's genius so much if it hadn't had Richie Benno there to educate us all in the art of leg spin? My immediate answer would be yes, of course, because it was pretty damn obvious
Yeah.
how brilliant Shane Warne is, because you could see it there in front of you.
Absolutely.
I think Benno may have helped a touch with some of the, or at least explaining how difficult some of it was. But no, we would have appreciated Warne's genius. And to be fair, we haven't talked about Warne, which is the big cricketing story that's unfortunately broken in the last few days. 2 Australian giants, in a number of ways, have left us in the last few days. First, Rod Marsh, a little less surprisingly, perhaps, he was not a young man, and he was not a well
74.
man. And Warne out of the blue on Friday afternoon in the
That
UK.
was such a shock.
I think everybody had the same reaction of what the.
I guess I'm still kind of like, even now, when I actually think that he's gone, I kind of feel really, really sad. But I just keep thinking, oh, he's dead. He'll be back next summer. It's just kind of in my head. I just
Bear does science.
Well, you know, I just can't. It's just really hard to get your head around.
I mean, I never particularly liked him as a person. He did come off, more than a touch boorish, I think it's fair to say. But you couldn't deny his surpassing genius as a cricketer. I mean, it's literally unprecedented. What he did as a leg spinner has never been done in cricket before, and may never be done again.
Indeed, a transcending character, a man who was
just a freak, a cricketing freak that we'll never see the likes of again. And what's funny is, well, it's not funny at all, actually. Messy Jez did some interviews with all of us, which he's releasing slowly one by one out as Patreon content. And in the course of that interview, I may have slagged off Warne quite excessively at certain points. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I'm wondering whether we need to put a little warning when that finally does go out to say this was recorded before Shane Warne sadly passed away at the age of 52.
Well,
it's disingenuous, isn't it? To as soon as somebody dies, suddenly everything you say about them is positive.
I don't regret what I said, but it may appear in bad taste.
Yeah,
especially since we don't mention that he's actually dead.
Yeah. But no.
So Matty, if you're listening,
which
he will listen to it, I'm sure.
He will be listening.
He might think about it.
I think it was. He asked about cricketers you didn't like, and I said something like, "Well, I wouldn't really want to spend an evening with Kevin Peterson or Shane Warne because it would just be."
Oh, I don't know. I think Shane Warne would be fun. It'd be boorish, but it'd be quite fun. Knowing what you got up to.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'd have exactly the same idea of fun, but
yeah, that's true.
But he was our age, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, I'm 51 next week. I'm just thinking, shit, he was 52.
Yeah,
God damn it!
It's hitting a lot of people of our generation quite hard to think.
Well,
but I mean, we should wait for the toxicology reports, of course. But
so apparently it's all come through. He was clean as a bell. But there was, I got a few nasty WhatsApp thing, knowing what his past was exactly that, and that was
his past was mainly weed. I don't think people don't really die of weed overdoses. Do they, Bear?
No, they don't. But I think there are other things as well. But
Yeah. No, he was somebody who. How do they describe it? Obituary. He lived life to the full.
Yeah, he admits it as well. Yeah,
and various other things.
And good on him. He enjoyed his life. And when he started commentary was quite good. Then of course he got really boorish. But even then, when they interviewed him about spin. Yeah. When they actually got him onto his subject, he was still really good to listen to, even when he was.
Well, he wasn't. I thought he had difficulty with that because what he could do, which no leg spinner has ever been able to do seemingly before him, is to constantly bowl in exactly the right place, and it's very, very difficult to.
Yeah, but
do that bowling wrist spin.
I know, but he also understood the art of spin per se, and the art of flight, and the art of tempting the batsman in certain areas and bowling certain lines, whether it was leg spin or off spin. I think I think he understood that. And he's quite good at explaining.
He understood that people couldn't do it as well as him.
Yes.
What they should be trying to do. Rather.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone likened him to George Best the other day. And it's not a bad comparison, I think, because he was wildly talented and knew it. And the point you made there, Fred, about his accuracy, is probably the thing that he's sort of less renowned for, but actually,
well, it's what sets everything else up.
That made him so different from anyone who'd gone before him, is that, particularly leg spinners, is that sort of unerring accuracy from ball one, and then everything he could do with the ball, particularly in his first half of his playing career. He sort of lost his, or deliberately didn't bowl his googly much in the latter half of his career, did he, because of his sort of injuries and whatever. But the number, I've said this so many times, the number of balls he just got with straight non-turning deliveries.
Well, we see that England batsman from Indian bowlers.
What did he call it? The doozy or something? When he
he had a different name for them. The zooter, the slider.
The zooter, that was it. Yeah, but it was all just basically top spinners, wasn't it?
I've got two new balls for this year against England.
The top spinner and a top spinner, but I'll call him.
I mean, he was never going to beat anyone with mind games, because it was fairly obviously he didn't have it new.
Well, except he did regularly.
I was going to say, well, he did. I think he just, I was reading today about how he sledged Gary. Was it Gary Kirsten, or was it some South African who he got out 12 times in tests.
Cullinan. Darryl Cullinan.
Yeah, Darryl Cullinan. That's it. And he'd gone to a psychiatrist, and of course Warney found out, and he was just asking him, "And what colour was the couch? What was he telling?" And all this kind of.
And the frightening thought is that had he been bowling in the DRS era, he may have got more wickets.
Might have got less.
Well, yeah. Oddly enough, somebody discovered a while back that he a lot of the time his back foot was crossing the return crease, which were technically no balls. I think we should go back and go through all his wickets and sort of take 300 of them off, because it turns out the umpire didn't see it. But he did come in from a bit wide sometimes. But generally speaking, it's thought that DRS has been good for spin bowlers, because more LBW decisions, they get more LBW decisions than they used to. Certainly in the time.
Yeah, but his LBWs generally were fucking plumb in front of middle stump.
Yeah, he got some decisions. He bought some decisions as well over the years. But you take that many wickets, it's going to happen. But he could have actually have taken more in this era, which is pretty scary. If you think about it. And Rod Marsh, sorry to have him as an afterthought, but he was, when I was first getting into cricket, he was very much the huge character of the in a team of big characters of Australia. You had Lilly and Thompson. Thompson wasn't much of a character. He was actually a very quiet personality. Lilly was big and brash, and Marsh and Lilly were the heart of that Australian team, and they were the stereotype of what we considered the big, brash, but hugely talented Australian.
Mustachioed, hairy-chested.
Men's men.
And
Australians.
I'm hoping Ladbrokes come out with an advert for for Rod Marsh's memory, because it's probably would be greatly frowned upon nowadays, and was slightly then, that Marsh took 500 to 1 in a test match for Australia to lose against Botham's England in 19.
Well, they'd have been fucking banned now.
Inconceivable that would be in any way.
Another Princess Bride reference. Well done there.
Oh yeah, inconceivable. A little bald fella. I can't remember his name.
Wallace Shawn.
I thought you might.
I am your IMDb.
Thank you so much. That was great.
What else was he in? Quick, let's scroll. Doom scroll. Rod Marsh, and then he wasn't entirely successful in his later career when he sort of travelled the world coaching. But I think coaching is a load of bollocks anyway. So
he was great at the academy, though. He held up in very high regard at the Australian Academy, wasn't he?
Yes, and he did some work in an English academy.
And he did some work in it. He set up some stuff in India as well.
Oh, it's Dennis Lilly did that, didn't he?
I think he did it with. He did, but I think Marsh helped him out as well. He's well regarded over there too. So
a great loss. And
R.I.P. both.
Did he say he was going to shave his moustache off if England won something? I seem to recall. Was that a thing once?
Or was that Merv Hughes?
Both were pretty.
With a moustache.
If it was anything to do with England and Australia, they were both pretty safe, and that's probably why they said
it. Perhaps, except for, of course, for.
Unless it was in 2010-11.
It's Mirabilis. Yeah. Well, anything more from my segment, which I have expropriated, is a question from. In response to that Messenger's tweet, Matthew Bartley says, and Bill Laurie to educate us on what it means to be a great Victorian. I think he means great Victorian. It's something which tends to pass a lot of English listeners by, but Bill Laurie is very parochial to his state.
Hmm.
He's
Well,
not
he's going to get.
He's
well,
not on
Warney's-
here anymore, is he?
No.
No.
Was he? Bill Laurie was.
Oh, he's gone! He's got him! He's gone!
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone! He's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah,
And he
yeah,
can't
no,
pronounce
no.
his L's, which is slightly odd for an international commentator.
But of course, he's
His
going to
L's
get.
are W's.
It's laughable. It's ludicrous.
Laughable, ludicrous.
Yeah.
Warney's going to get a state funeral, isn't he? I mean, that's quite mad.
I wonder if he'll
Yeah.
get knighted posthumously,
I
because
don't
the
think
other
that happens,
the,
does it?
the other four cricketers of the century, wisdom cricketers of the centuries, were all knights of the so-called realm.
Various realms.
Viv Richards, Don Bradman, who else?
Gary
around?
Sobers
Gary Sobers, and
and the other one.
Jack Hobbs.
Winston Cricket Almanac had gone to press before Shane Warne's untimely passing, and I'm led to believe that there was some discussion as to whether the presses ought to be stopped,
Really?
and it was decided, nah. But apparently it did happen once before, which was Don Bradman died at a similar time of the year, and they did
Right.
stop the presses, and did not want to miss out on a tribute to the great Don.
Mm.
So,
Well,
deadlines, tough things.
I mean, this is it. We're probably late on it now, aren't we? I mean, we're what, 3 days out or 2 days out. You
Yeah,
know.
the world's moved on to Hank.
No,
Montana.
I mean, there's so much been said already.
Tony's written an article.
Tony's written an article. Went up
It's
tonight.
quite nice.
yeah.
I've retweeted it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice personal memories of both Rod and Warney. So
I was there. For
head on
Warner-
over.
I was at Old Trafford for the Ball of the Century.
Wow.
Were you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Were
in
you
my.
watching, or were you drinking in a bar somewhere?
No. I was actually at the ground. It was in my last year at Manchester, and
Mm.
I was there with a bunch of old Etonians and shit. And I just thought, you know what, the Test match is on at the Ashes is on at Old Trafford. I haven't seen the Test match for ages.
You better go.
Got
yeah.
nothing to do, and I went along. We were sat up in the gods, and it was right towards the end of the day, and we were all sitting there with pints of beer, smoking spliffs at the back of the, stands. In those days, you could do that shit. It was great. And this guy comes on. I think it was close to the last ball of the day or something. But I just remember we were all going, "Who's this guy? Exactly? Who's this guy?" I never really seen him. Don't reckon he's going to do much. And then there was this absolute snore. We were like, "What?"
Mm.
Yeah.
That
I can't
changed a lot.
remember.
That ball.
Bear,
Yeah.
did we cross paths with Warne during the World Cup of 2019?
I don't remember seeing a photo with you, Bear. I mean, you sent. round
No, he
photos.
never came into our box, but he was there. Yeah, I do remember seeing him. I mean, I saw everybody, didn't I? I mean, I've got photos with a lot of them.
Sachin.
Sachin,
Curtly.
Curtly,
Steve Waugh.
Jimmy Anderson, Steve Waugh, yeah, Capel Dev,
Capel Dev. That's right. That was a goodie.
yeah.
Yeah, but not Warney. I remember. I'd have remembered that. Are we
Yeah.
just about done, chaps? We're slightly.
I think we
Well,
are.
we are. It's ending on a slight maudlin note, which is a shame. But
Well,
no
would you
less
mind
than
if
he
I-
deserves.
Would you mind if I just give a quick shout out to my brother-in-law, Domo? Dom has gone into hospital today and
Oh.
is recovering. So I just found out this evening. But little shout out to you, Dom. Get well soon, my friend.
Get well soon, Dom.
Oh, absolutely, Dom. You've had to put up enough with being Grubby's brother-in-law. You
Yeah.
need illness on top of that.
And now he's got to
Yeah.
listen to this whole podcast just to get his.
Yes,
mention.
we mentioned you some point. Tell him
Yeah,
some point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Tell him it's
And
the
in
very
fact,
last
Grubby's going to tweet you and tell you you're going to mention our show. You have to listen to the whole thing to find out, just so we get an
your
extra
family
listen.
as well. 'Cause we need as
Absolutely.
many listeners as possible to bump us up the non-existent charts. Well, it's been a pleasure as always. Tomorrow starts the England West Indies series, or the West Indies versus England series, and
Quick
we'll be
predictions.
doing every ball of it. And we hope all our wonderful listeners join us for this and for whatever else we do. So
Indeed, we'll be on air at 1:50 GM, 1:50
Yeah.
PM GMT.
I'm not on early, so I'm going to turn up a bit late.
Okay. I mean,
although
I'll be there.
decide to do that, and then Tony will move the rosters round, and I'll be on first thing, and I'll be stuck sort of halfway to Sydenham. So
I'll be fine. I'll be there on my Todd until you
We-
arrive. Then I don't think anyone else is coming in tomorrow. Just
Are
me
we
and you.
giving our score predictions for the series?
Oh yeah. I'm going to go for an England win, 2-1.
you always do, don't you?
Yeah, of course I do. I always think we should beat the West Indies and the West Indies. You
think
see the
England-
pitch? George DeBell tweeted a
Once in
picture
50
of the
years.
pitch yesterday.
Yeah, ridiculous.
It looks as dry as a bone with
And there's all
no
these ropes
grass
around
on
here.
it.
How are they supposed to play without tripping out?
Yeah. There's not a shred of grass on it, green on it. It looks like a maybe
Yeah,
a bit
and then they
undulating
move it
across
to the one
as
next
well.
to it, which is covered in grass. And
Well, no, the one next to it looked like a bloody speedway track. I mean,
So 2-1 England from the Bear, Fred.
2-1 West Indies.
That's exactly what I was going to say, which means I'm going to have to say 2-0
1
West
all.
Indies.
We
With
don't
one
keep a league
weather
table
affected.
of these predictions, which is just as well. Because if you'd asked me in 10 seconds' time, I'd come up with a completely different answer. But until next time, so long, chaps, and whatever to all our listeners.
Yeah.
Hasta luego.
Oh, so that was the innings of Brendan McCullum. Scores lots of fours because he don't like to run 'em. And here we are waving Brendan McCullum goodbye. Whoa, whoa.